Well, folks, it seems America's back at it again. Just when you thought we might have learned our lesson, here we are, repeating history like a broken record. That's right. We're dropping bombs in the Middle East. Again, because apparently the first few times weren't enough to get the message across. This time it's Yemen. Again, yes, Yemen, the country that has been a battleground for far too long, because apparently the first 7 years of airstrikes weren't quite enough. We just keep going back like a bad sequel that nobody asked for. You'd think we'd learn, wouldn't you? But no, it seems like we're stuck in a loop, unable to break free from our own misguided strategies. It's like that old saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And yet, here we are expecting a different outcome each time, except in this case, it's less about insanity and more about, well, we'll get to that. There's always more to the story than meets the eye. On March 15th, 2025, the US launched a series of airstrikes against what they called Houthi targets across Yemen. A date that will likely be remembered for all the wrong reasons. Now I know what you're thinking. Houthi who? What's Yemen? It's a question many Americans might be asking themselves right now. And that, my friends, is part of the problem. We dive into these conflicts without fully understanding the complexities involved. We keep getting involved in these conflicts without, shall we say, a firm grasp on the local geography. It's like trying to navigate a maze blindfolded. It's like trying to parallel park in a city you've only ever seen on Google Maps. Messy, disorienting, and likely to end with some serious damage. And yet, we keep trying, hoping for a miracle. So buckle up, buttercups, because we're diving headfirst into the wild, wacky world of US foreign policy. It's a roller coaster ride with more twists and turns than you can imagine. And trust me, you're going to want to hold on to your hats and your sanity for this one. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but one we need to understand. The official reason for these recent airstrikes: the US says it's responding to Houthi attacks on shipping lanes in the Red Sea. Apparently these attacks are disrupting global commerce, which is bad, obviously. Disrupted shipping means delayed goods, higher prices, and a ripple effect that can be felt across the world. But you know what else disrupts global commerce? Giant bombs raining down from the sky? Airstrikes can obliterate infrastructure, halt production, and create chaos that takes years to recover from. Now, I'm no geopolitical strategist, and my expertise lies more in the realm of dismantling corrupt politicians with witty pun, but even I can see the flaw in this logic. It's like trying to solve a puzzle by throwing away half the pieces. It's a bit like trying to put out a fire with a flamethrower. Sure, you might extinguish a few flames, but you're also likely to incinerate everything else in the process. The collateral damage can be immense and often outweighs the initial problem. Of course, there are whispers that it's not really about the shipping lanes. Some say it's about sending a message to Iran. A show of strength, a warning, or perhaps a strategic move in a larger geopolitical chess game. Others say it's about propping up Saudi Arabia, strengthening alliances, securing oil interests, and maintaining influence in the region. And then there are those who believe it's all part of a grand conspiracy involving lizard people and the Illuminati. Because why not add a bit of sci-fi flair to the mix? Personally, I'm holding out for the lizard people explanation. It's just more entertaining. After all, if we're going to speculate, we might as well have some fun with it. Let's talk about these shipping lanes for a second, shall we? I mean, they sound very important, don't they? Like something out of a Tom Clancy novel. All high-stakes espionage and international intrigue, but in reality, they're just, well, lanes where ships go. And yes, these lanes are important for global trade, but are they worth bombing an entire country over? Again, I mean, haven't we learned from our past mistakes? Apparently not. It seems America's foreign policy playbook is about as thick as a Denny's menu: limited options, predictable outcomes, and a lingering sense of regret afterwards. Section 4: Casualties of War and Bad Jokes. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the tragically deceased elephant in the bombed-out remnants of what used to be someone's living room. Because yes, folks, there were casualties. Civilians, as usual, caught in the crossfire. Early reports suggest dozens of people were killed, including women and children. But hey, at least we sent a message, right? A message written in blood and shrapnel, but a message nonetheless. Look, I know this is serious stuff, and I know that making light of war and suffering is generally frowned upon, but sometimes the only way to cope with the absurdity of it all is to laugh. Because if we don't laugh, we'll cry, and frankly, I'm all cried out. Section 5, Global Reactions, from hellfire to hold your horses. The international community, as you can imagine, had a few things to say about America's latest bombing spree. The reactions were as varied as they were intense, with some nations outright condemning the actions while others took a more cautious approach. Iran predictably condemned the strikes, calling them illegal and a violation of the UN Charter. They were quick to point out the hypocrisy they saw in the actions of the United States, emphasizing the need for international law to be respected, which is a bit rich coming from a country that routinely violates human rights like it's going out of style. The irony was not lost on many observers who noted the double standards at play. Then there's Trump, who, in a truly shocking turn of events, took to Truth Social to rant about the situation. His posts were as fiery as ever, filled with his trademark bluster and bravado. In a series of all-caps rants, he warned the Houthis that their time is up and threatened overwhelming lethal force. His words were met with a mix of alarm and skepticism, as many questioned the wisdom of such inflammatory rhetoric. He also told Iran to stop supporting the Houthis or face consequences. This ultimatum only served to escalate tensions further, with many fearing that the situation could spiral out of control. Because apparently threatening nuclear-capable nations with vague but ominous consequences is a perfectly reasonable foreign policy strategy these days. The international community watched with bated breath, unsure of what would happen next. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is basically just standing around, awkwardly shuffling their feet and hoping they don't get dragged into this mess. The sense of unease was palpable as leaders tried to navigate the treacherous waters of international diplomacy. It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck. You know it's going to be bad, but you just can't look away. The unfolding drama captivated the world, leaving everyone wondering what the next chapter would bring.